And before we jump into the questions and answers, and again, we do unlimited as much as you want. By the way, if you want to leave at 1 o'clock and you don't want to stay, you got your certificates. We're not making you, but if you want to, I think it's a good portion of this. You can stay as long as you want, and we can have this discussion. I just wanted Joseph give us a little things based off your involvement with the two-way communication stuff. What do you know about the new IBC requirement, if they're going to change it to reference NFPA 72, if they're going to change it to indicate the word emergency? Tell us what you know about this stuff.
So I can tell you that I was the writer of a new proposal for the 2024 edition of the IFC or the IBC that would include that language to reference to reference NFPA 72, as well as to reference UL 2525. And there were 3 proposals, and we all, 2 of us pulled our proposals back, and we backed Mr. Sakota's team, who had written a very good proposal to include that reference both in Chapter 403 as well as 1009.8. So now that language, I believe, has been approved, and it will be in the 2024 edition. But the California, the Office of the State Fire Marshal looked at the new language in 24 and said that it would, because it would benefit the state, they will be looking at adopting that language as part of the new California Building Code and California Fire Code for the next cycle. So as of January 1st of 2023, the new California Building and Fire Code should say the reference standard is now NFPA 72 and UL 2525. So obviously, with everything Sagiv told us today, when you read through Chapter 24 and you get into the weeds on it, it affects a lot, because specifically Chapter 7, the systems are required to have fully submitted documented drawings. The building code official will now be asked to communicate with the fire code official for review and inspection and testing of these systems. So permits will have to be pulled. And the other part of that is with the UL standard. One thing to make mention is the state, or the city of Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, has already adopted UL 2525. So that is a reference and enforceable standard as of this minute, which means that things cascade from there. So they just have a written regulation that says that they have to adopt any new UL standards by a certain timeline, and that was January or June 12th of this year.
Very good. David Sakota, were you involved in that?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, I wrote, I requested a formal interpretation to the state fire marshal.
I remember that.
Yeah, you were probably on the committee and said,
yeah,
and saw it. But basically, all throughout the building and fire code, there's all these requirements for communication systems, and we have an installation standard that governs their installation, but there was no reference connecting them.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of confusion. People were just making up their own thing. Well, does my emergency communication system, do I need to install it per 72? Does it need to be survivable? There was no connection between the building code and the installation standard.
I totally agree with you. I supported this in California, and I think it's going to be a great thing nationally that the IBC specifically said all the system has to be in accordance with NFPA 72.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, an installation standard exists, so it should be referenced.
Right.
And so, George, I just looked at the blue lines for January. It's in what you're talking about will be in section 1009.12.
Okay.
And it says that it's going to be in accordance with NFPA 72, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And this is basically where we're going. And this is great. It's going to be effective January 1st. Thank you, George, for confirming that. And the main thing is, as an AJ, we can make our own decision, but we like to follow the code and we like to point on a code section. So I can't even tell you how many times an architect come to me and he said, I want to put this two-way communication in the stairs or in the lobby. And I said, okay, you need to follow NFPA 72. And he said, where is it in the code? And I said, it's not in the code. And then they argue and they come with this fancy two-way communication system that I don't know where it's from and doesn't have backup power, doesn't have survivability, doesn't have supervision. I can tell you that many of the manufacturers didn't have the feature that monitors the phone line fault, right? So if you lose the phone line, you don't get a trouble. And I rejected the system just because of that, because they don't monitor the phone line or they don't monitor the communication. Basic stuff, right? So now it's all included in UL 2525. It's included in the code, and it's a good thing.